Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Thank everybody for joining us and be in the gallery and online. And I'd like to call this committee meeting order on February 22nd at 9 a.m. We respectfully acknowledge that the land which we are gathered is unceded traditional territory of the Shrubnik. And other than that, just get everybody to respect each other and address through the chair, and we'll get through this as quick as possible. So, any late items on the agenda? To add? No, everything's good. Okay, approval of the agenda. Recommended that the Select Finance Committee meeting agenda for February 22nd, 2023 be approved as circulated. May I have a mover? Malcolm, seconder? Anderson? All in favor? Thank you. Adoption of the minutes. Recommended that the minutes of the Select Finance Committee held on February 8th, 2023 be adopted. May I have a mover? Bob, seconder Siobhan. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, moving on to new business. Open the floor to Kelly. She's gonna conduct this. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so today is all about economic development. Here, so we'll start. So I'm just going to make sure that this is properly being shared before we get going here. Today, we're going to talk about economic development and give you a little update on the District of Sycamoose Development Corporation. So get this going. So the Development Corporation, we're talking about the past, the present, and the future. So we're just going to give everybody a little update of the history of the Development Corporation because there's new councillors, some new board members. So this is just, I'm going to talk a little bit about the past and how we got to where we're at. And then Carly's going to take it over and talk about the present and the future. So you don't just have to hear my voice, but I talk pretty quick, but I think Carly actually talks quicker.
I think so.
Right? I think but I would say she's faster. Okay, sorry. Okay, so history of economic development. So first of all, why did we incorporate? Well, previously we paid the regional district. We had a service establishment bylaw and we paid the regional district about $50,000 a year to provide economic development services for the District of Sycamoose. We weren't feeling we were getting value for that money. So council decided, hey, let's make a request to get out of this service establishment bylaw. It was supported by the directors of CSRD. And because we thought we could do it better, we thought we could more effectively promote the District of Sycamoose and the area and tourism better, doing it in-house versus paying the regional district. At the time, some priorities identified were the downtown revitalization, commercial and industrial development, a regional community forest, a natural gas and other energy systems, the MRDT, securing that, and a campground development. So at the time, back in 2018, those were some we were talking about. And it was decided to form a corporation to help achieve some of those initiatives. So at the time, there was multiple options. We could do ECDEV in-house, we could form a society, we could form a corporation, and the pros and cons were looked at each, and it was determined that the corporation was the best vehicle at the time. This way we could pick our directors, whoever we so choose, and that could use their experience as community leaders to help have that foundational knowledge base of business and tourism in the area. We ultimately have control. We own 100% of all the shares. So this way we can still control what's going on. With the regional districts. It's a lot harder to control. This way we can control it. And development opportunities could be outside the District of Sycamoose, but we could still have control. So that arm's length was there. And so there was less perceived conflict. If there was development opportunities out there, and to free up district staff and district council, and it would be a more effective and efficient use of resources. So at the time, that's what we decided, and then USDC was born on February 28th, 2018. So today's February 22nd, so it's essentially been 5 years. So we're dealing with a 5-year-old right now. which we can all appreciate. So in those 5 years, what have we done? Well, I mean, for the first 2.5 years, we didn't have any staff. Really, it was just a shell company, and it was more Evan and myself trying to do some initiatives on from the side of our desks, working with the board. So it really didn't have much teeth for the first 2.5 years, but very excited that we managed to secure the MRDT tax. This has been a game changer for us because it allowed us to get some sustainable tourism income that we can rely on and keep on reinvesting in the district of Sicamous. And that took quite a while to secure that. And it was quite a dance that we had to do because we had to get 51% of all the hoteliers to agree to do that. We had to do a significant consultation. We worked with a consultant out of Whistler that helped us through navigating through this process. And we finally, after a little push and pull, got the majority of the hoteliers to agree. So that's been great. And so that was a real win for us. And we've been collecting that since September of 2020. And with that, we established the Explore Sicamous Tourism Advisory Committee to make recommendations on how that money is to be spent. As the hoteliers are the means to that income, the Tourism Advisory Committee allows those hoteliers to have input in terms of how that money is to be spent, as well as other tourism people in the area. We've completed some investigation for a campground. The campground didn't go anywhere, but we did do work on it. We've completed a hotel valuation study. We've created, I know Carly's created alliances and established relationships with other economic development officers and tourism providers. We've secured various grants, both in ECDEV and in tourism. We've developed the Explore Sicamous tourism website and the content with it. We now have just over 1,100, so 1,149 Instagram followers on the Explore Sicamous, and 780 on Facebook. And we've most recently, from an ECDEV perspective, we spent the last year completing a community economic development plan to help give our 5-year-old some direction moving forward. And just so you know, at any point, if you have a question, feel free to stop me or we're good. We got lots of time. So what is the current structure? What we must not forget is ultimately we all report to the taxpayer, right? So that fundamentally is I feel really important. We're all funded and this is all happening because we have people paying their taxes, which we are super appreciative of, right? And so who reports to the taxpayer? Mayor and council do. Ultimately, these guys, it's all on their shoulders. And then with that, district staff is on one side and we do our municipal work over here. And then we've got the DOSDC board who then reports to mayor and council. The DOSDC board then has their staff member who then executes economic development and whatever services on behalf of mayor and council. Let's see here. So then in the mix, we have the Tourism Advisory Committee who also makes recommendations to the DevCorp board as well as the DevCorp staff, Carly, right? She makes on how those tourism dollars are to be spent, not the ECDEV dollars, just the tourism dollars. In addition, the district staff, we provide support to the development corporation as well, administratively, finance, communication type stuff. So we provide support throughout the process. So that's the current structure. So what resources does the development corporation have right now? Well, right now, currently we have one full-time employee, that's Carly. She's the tourism and economic development manager. So we've had her since August of 2020. That timeline coincides nicely with when we started collecting MRDT money of September 2020. So because of that, we were able to hire somebody to take care of both those ECDEV and tourism for us. In addition, the DevCorp, which is great, has mom and dad, the district of Sicamous. We have great resources. Finance, we do all the payroll. We, take care of all the bookkeeping. We pay the bills. We do the tax return annually. We prepare the financial statements. It actually is at our audited financial statements. It's all consolidated up. So there's all that financial expertise as well as support with communications and corporately administration. So we have that high level support, which I think is valuable. And in addition, we're able to provide the Development Corporation with grants or loans at any time. We just have to give public notice, and I'll explain how we're able to do that. But that is a resource of the Development Corporation. I can go to my mom and dad and say, hey, can I borrow money? Or even better yet, will you give it to me? But I will do this for you. So we're not just, it's not just a free handout. There has to be, because we're all reporting ultimately to the taxpayer. And then as well, there's a great office space that has been brightly painted and there's lots of room in there. So that's also a resource. And as well, we have experienced community leaders as directors. So this is in the control of the District of Sicamous Council, and you have the ability to appoint strong community leaders as directors, which then they're a resource for the Development Corporation. So this is my favorite slide because I'm a numbers person, and we have worked really hard to get to where we are at so far in terms of income. And, back in 2018, so we were paying CSRD 50,000. Well, so we decided, you know what, we'll give our Development Corporation 60, right? And then next year, we gave them 80. And then we've moved up to 100 in year 3, but we also started collecting MRDT here. And as you can tell, the light green is the MRDT. It is significantly growing each year, whereas this number has plateaued here. So we're giving a continual amount for ECDEV, but the MRDT, which we never know what we're going to get, and this is just an estimate for December. We don't have December's number in there, but I made a conservative estimate. So it was a year-round comparative. And I'm expecting this number to significantly grow probably next year because of our regulation for short-term rentals, and our requirement is to register for MRDT, and we're trying to get proof from people. I mean, it's difficult, but we're navigating through that. So I can see that number increasing. So, and then as well, there's this other lovely light blue color, which is also important. And those are grants that we've obtained. So because we have an employee, we've got 50,000 here, 22,000 here. And this doesn't include other grants that have been funneled through Salmon Arm Economic Development Society as well. So there's other ones that aren't on our books. But this is a nice graph and it's going in the right direction. And what's even more importantly, because we ultimately are funded by the taxpayer, is this is a graph of funding sources. So this color green is taxpayers, right? This light green is other sources, so grants and MRDT money. And as you can see now, in the last 2 years, we've had more income from other sources than from our taxpayers, which is fabulous. We're going in the right direction. This is what we want to see. Okay, so what governs the Development Corporation? So because you're a corporation, you're incorporated under the Business Corporations Act. So we have to follow those rules. In addition, as you're a subsidiary of a municipality, there are some rules within the community charter which also apply, right? So you kind of are in this weird spot between being a company and not. But with that comes special tax rules. So if the income generated we have to file a corporate tax return like in every other corporation. But if we earn income within our district bounds, we don't have to pay tax on it. File a tax return, but we don't actually pay any income taxes on it. And then we have a shareholder agreement, which ultimately outlines the relationship between the District of Sicamous and the Development Corporation. Says, hey, you know what? If you spend over 50,000, I want to know about it. If you do this, I want to know about it. That's what that document talks about. And then there's the partnership agreement, which is really important. So this municipality under the community charter is not allowed to assist businesses unless there is a partnership agreement, which basically says, hey, if you provide this for me, I'll give you a benefit over here. And so it's deemed it's fair. So we have a partnership agreement which authorizes us, say, if you provide economic development services of X, Y, and Z and other projects as we mutually agree to, we can give you a grant, we can loan you money, we can secure debt for you. So there's things that we are able to provide to the Development Corporation because of this partnership agreement. And then there is the agreement for services. And I brought that up here. I just wanted to share. this agreement, because it is more in line with the budget. So what is this? The agreement for services. Sorry, I'm just going through here. So it's a 2-pager. It's like, what is the services that the Development Corporation is going to provide to the District of Sycamore? So as it stands, we have a 5-year term here. So from January 2019 to December of 2024. And what services do we want the Dev Corp within this agreement to work on? Downtown Revite Wellness Center, MRDT initiative, community forest, housing development, hotel development, natural gas, economic development projects, administration, and legal. So this are some things that at the time, back in 2019, that we wanted Development Corporation to work on. But what's important to note is that the amount is determined annually by way of budget deliberations and is set by the annual financial plan bylaw. So each year, this number, we tried to make this agreement a little looser, recognizing that things change from year to year, right? So this way it's a little fluid each year, depending on budget deliberations. That's how we'll determine how much we're going to give the Development Corporation for economic development initiatives.
Kelly, just one quick one. Can Pam see that?
It's not sharing on the screen.
Okay, I'll share it quickly before I move on to the next thing. Here. Okay, here. Okay.
Just curious.
Yeah, no, and you know what? You're right. I know you gotta be a little fiddly with this. Yeah, so this, just to highlight again for you, Pam, if you didn't see, is that each year, by way of budget deliberations, the budget is set, sorry, not the budget, is that the district agrees to pay the DOSDC an amount determined annually by the budget deliberations. And then this says, okay, so when do we have public meetings? When do we not have public meetings? So we're required, the Development Corporation, twice a year has to report publicly to the District of Sycamore. We have been doing it quarterly, so we've been doing more than that, but that's the minimum requirements underneath this fee-for-service agreement. Okay, so I'm going to go back to, so I just wanted to show everybody that, because really that's what we're here today to talk about is the budget. Okay, hold on. Done. Okay, and then a little bit about MRDT, just in case there's lots of words on here. The words are so you could read it prior to me talking about it. It's a 2% tax. It's a joint program, provincial program administered by BC Ministry of Finance, BC Tourism and Arts and Culture, and Destination BC. There's 61 it's only a provincial wide program. There's 61 communities in BC that are registered. I think when we registered, there was about, it's like 54 or 58. I can't remember what the number was. It had a 5 in front of it. So now there's 61. It's 2% of the gross room sales for any hotel or short-term rental. If you're earning more than, I think it's 35 or 2,500 annually. And we have an agreement. The MRDT collection is for a 5-year term. So there's a 5-year agreement to do the 2%, and then you have to renew it every 5 years. So everybody that has so far done it for 5 years has gone and opted to renew it. Because why would you not? It tends to be growing and it's good for the community. So right now our 5-year term expires September of 2025.
Does that 2% increase after 5 years, or do we determine when it increases?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have the option to increase it to 3%, but we'd have to get all the hoteliers to agree to it again and identify what project, that housing project, that additional 1% would go to. But yes, didn't Seminar recently go up to 3%?
They applied for it, but they did not get it.
They didn't get the hotelier approval?
Yes.
And I don't think for a renewal, you have to get the hotelier approval. It's only if you're going to increase the tax amount.
So why do we know why they didn't get it? Sorry.
I can talk to them and find out specifically where the holdback was.
Yeah, it's always good to know, right? So we don't go down that road. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, and the hotel, the ones that you need approval for, if you have 4 or more sleeping units, then that goes into the pool of hotels. That would then have to, like, based on the number of units, 51% of the number of units have to agree for within the district boundaries.
So have we looked at, oh, sorry, through the chair, sorry, Gord. Have we looked at other businesses? And I know we've talked about the houseboat accommodators paying into this. Do you want to share the situation around that?
Sure, yeah, through the chair. Houseboat accommodators fall under a different law or a different regulation as an accommodator, so they would not be mandated to apply. They're not considered a stationary accommodation, so it would be a voluntary contribution from someone like a houseboat provider or any other entity. That would be where it would be an accommodation voluntary contribution. We can, under MRDT, we can have another voluntary contribution through a membership platform or a simple voluntary platform. But then you have to figure out with those entities how you get there or deliver their ROI on it. So it is something that we've been exploring and looking at 2 different communities, Kelowna and Golden, about how they have their stakeholder memberships and how they funnel more money into the tax base, or sorry, the tourism tax revenue. So those will be ones that we are going to explore a little bit deeper, because they're 2 very different models from a larger community to a smaller community, but they work quite well and they do support the entire stakeholder industry equitably.
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks, Charlie.
Good. Yeah, no, great question. I know, because we were talking about that lots, and if there's a way to get voluntary contributions and make sure it's a win-win.
And not just from our houseboaters, but from, you know, the go-kart people, like everyone that wants to contribute to this can contribute to this, right?
Well, you have to have an agreement, and then the agreement has to,
One, correct?
right, and there has to be a basis, and then you would want to know what that money is being spent on, because so it would outline that.
Kelly, one time when I was in the snowmobile club, running the club, we passed it around the board, and the snowmobile club agreed that they would donate like $1, $1 a trail pass, which should be like $20,000. Yeah, 20,000 riders, or even a membership. They would donate $10 towards from the membership to that. And also we had Bob, the golf course. He indicated that he wanted to participate. So other different industries that could voluntarily come up with their own. And then I know Todd kind of indicated because what they would like to do is have a tourism group that actually kind of almost takes over the marketing, because that's what the money goes for. It's marketing, the shows. Maybe we have an academic booth that goes to the show, and it goes to, the big shows like the home shows that have 40,000 people that come into them in Vancouver, or, snowmobile shows. Yes,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of people that could contribute if we get agreements together.
Right, and it's not only the agreements, it's those providers actually following through and willing to charge their consumer that, right? Because they have to charge them, so everybody has to agree, right? So I think there's definitely opportunity there.
Good work.
And then how can the MRDT, so the District of Sicamous is the designated recipient, and through our partnership agreement, we allow the Dev Corp to administer that on our behalf. It has to be for destination and tourism marketing. It's very specific, and we have to report accordingly. So it's under the PST Act, and we have to account for how that money is being spent. We have an annual financial report that's due at the end of May. We have a performance report, which is also due at the end of May. And then we have a 1-year tactical plan, which is due November each year. When we first initially applied for the MRDT, we have a 5-year plan, and then we've got each year the 1-year tactical plan changes. And that's what I believe Carly reviews with the Tourism Advisory Committee, and they discuss those type of things, like where is that money going? And then it needs to be reported to Destination BC. Did I miss anything? All right, and now we're talking present, which then I'm passing this on to Carly. Do you want this?
Sure.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly.
Beautiful picture.
Isn't that awesome artwork? Lovely.
So I'm going to take you, Mayor and Council, through the current position we're in as an economic development corporation. Before I'd like to start, I'd like to introduce Director Dave Hamilton and Director Alan Legler are sitting here as well. And I'm not sure if we've got any directors online, but they were all hoping to be here. But they were conflicts up the road. So what we did, I think our biggest project to date for the Economic Development Corporation was to really try and understand after 2 years, fine point or fine tune our direction and where we wanted to go as a development corporation. And so we invested through our special projects budget and an FCPC grant into the development of a community economic development plan. So I believe that the plan was attached for your reading pleasure. I'm going to be working to extrapolate the key information and bring it down to a digestible 4 or 5 piece document that outlines the 4 recommended priority areas that came out of about 6 months of consultation with staff, community engagement, business engagement, and research through a couple different metrics that they use to gather information about our industry, about our tourism, and about our visitors. So the 4 recommended priority areas were tourism, product development, and marketing, recognizing that we are a tourism town and that is our strongest and largest industry, business retention and expansion, land development and investment attraction, and housing. Now I'll take you guys through the top line priorities of where they sent through all of their research, the information that they've discovered. So for tourism, product development, and marketing, recognizing that there is a big opportunity to bring new products into town, while at the same time looking at our existing businesses for diversify and get into those targeted shoulder seasons, which is where our biggest point of opportunity is. And as a side note, that's what MRDT funding is designed to support. So whenever you look at your MRDT reporting, you as a community have to determine where your shoulder season opportunities are, and that's where you apply the majority of your marketing funding as per their directives, because they understand that all communities need to be a 4th season to ensure the health of tourism as well as economic impact within the town that tourism provides. So diversifying tourism products is essential. As I mentioned, assisting and identifying and assisting partners into the development of new product and focusing on those shoulder seasons, leveraging the existing tourism assets. And as mentioned, this priority, the funding primarily comes from MRDT. Our second priority is business retention and expansion. So, businesses that are already in the community represent the biggest opportunities for growth. And we have seen that through our research and through our public engagement. What this plan did and what the engagement did was determine businesses from our 265 business license list. They reached out and did about 64 interviews and direct business engagement, and found that there was portions that were in a growth stage. There were businesses that were in what they called a red flag stage, looking to either relocate or shut down their businesses within the next months. And then businesses that were looking to expand or, diversify their product in some way. And those are the ones that they broke down for us to give us a tangible list to actually go out to the community. And then the other opportunity here with business retention and expansion is to encourage the development of commercial and light industrial space to accommodate those businesses that are working out of their garages or their basements, that they are ready to take that next step. They want to stay in St. Louis, but unfortunately, we don't have the commercial space to accommodate them. So that became one of the highlights in this second priority. Priority 3 was part of the original mandate, looking at land development and investment attraction. So this is to stimulate and encourage manageable growth in residential, commercial, and industrial sectors. We want to stimulate growth in the high priority sectors through direct land acquisition and development or in partnership with developers. We want to become more investment ready through development of business diversification strategies and investment attraction assets, and then work with the DOS to improve communications around building, permitting, and land development processes. So a lot of times we are that first stop based on our directors network. They're reaching out to developers and bringing them into town. So we are that one stop. So they do look at sort of romancing these developers and romancing these other industry professionals that want to come into town, and then passing them on through a much better communication landscape with between our board and the DOS. And then priority 4, which is, no surprise to anybody, but is housing. So we hear it all the time from our business owners that we're in contact with, that housing is critical. It's a critical factor in the sustainability and growth of our local economy. We are uniquely positioned to play an active role in the residential development and the commercial development, as Kelly had mentioned, through our partnership agreement with the DOS, and essentially being mom and dad being able to go and work directly with surplus lands use and have a better relationship to bring those developers in and almost remove the middleman in a sense. They can come to the DOSDC, they go right to the DOS and they get that information that they need to expedite their processes. As a development corporation, we can acquire and develop land independently or seek experienced developers to partner with. As I mentioned, working with the US surplus lands to develop diversity of residential and mixed use housing and focus on promoting Sycamores to potential housing developers through not only our network, but through our business strategies and our development assets. So more words on this slide. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Excuse me, thank you through the chair. Yeah, on housing, so council has just adopted our strategic housing. It's not called a plan, is it? Strategy, strategic housing strategy. And directed staff to implement that. So that has a lot of positive things that could help, even with the Dev Corp, to help promote our strategic housing strategy.
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, we have sent it out. We had Sarah send it to us. Sarah, sorry. And we're doing it at our next board meeting to do exactly that, as we want to incorporate it into our existing action plan for housing. So it definitely will. It's a nice addition to help us pull all that information together, because the more information we have as we're developing our assets to give a nice, professional package of these developers, all of that information. We do get asked about the housing situation a lot.
Perfect. Working.
So I'll take you guys quickly through our action plan. So again, with the investment of this community economic development plan, it has really given us sort of that laser focused plan that we can actually now grab onto and execute. So we were looking at things to do. We were kind of going in different directions, trying to figure out what exactly we were as a development corporation. And with this new board, with a new variety of experience and tons of energy and excitement, we now have the ability to execute the action plan as it's been set up that we invested in. So we're really excited now to have gone through, looked at where we're going to go, and these are the top 4 within each of our priorities. So in tourism, product development, and marketing, we are going to continue to apply for grants and funding for tourism projects that are unique, authentic, and multi-day being the key. So we want to make sure that we can find opportunities that drive those multi-day experiences. More heads and beds means more MRDT revenue, and means more revenue into our businesses. We want to promote increased overnight stays during the shoulder season. We've got our action 2, which is our focus on priority projects. So a lot of these again are under the MRDT plan, as this MRDT funding primarily funds this priority. Sorry, it's a lot of priorities of funding. So I'll quickly go through. We've got our visitor guide that's being updated right now. We're going to develop an event attraction guide, so become a more, fiscally responsible and efficient area as an event hosting versus outputting all this money on events. We want to bring in people in and show them the resources gap. To do that, we need to invest in an event attraction guide that very, very accurately talks about all of our assets and streamline the process. So it's a one-stop shop for events that we can go out and attract them and give them something to show that we are a great place to host. We're looking at a tourism master plan. So while we have the priority area developed, this is something within the next year or 2, we want to look at really fine-tuning what that looks like through a master plan. We're going to be doing a lot more of the stakeholder engagement sessions to understand what tourism affects the community as well, and it's supposed to benefit the community. So we want to make sure that our community members are very excited and engaged in our tourism process and what we're doing to bring, so that they have stuff to do as well. We've got the Sycamores geocache tour, so we're reinvesting in that and expanding that to include now more business engagement. Wayfinding kiosks, so I'm working with Daryl. Going to give him my shoot for the stars plan about having some signage around town that will appropriately guide our tourists to our points of interest around town. It'll also feature big events, calendars, and what to do in sick moves while you're here. So I've been reaching out to get the events from the community, from businesses, so that we can make sure that everybody is equally represented, and it shows that there's a lot going on, not only just in July and August, but right throughout the rest of the year. Content development, working on a lot of drone and video production this year. We focused a lot on stills, but video is the name of the game, especially being able to promote our area. And then shoulder season event support and mapping projects through ATV, trails, parks, etc. Action item 3, new partnerships and marketing opportunities. We've connected recently with Indigenous Tourism BC, and we're developing a nice comprehensive program to support our local Indigenous artists and help them get their market ready assets because we move the area. And then we've, in advance of the rail trail and the Alpine Park, I've been talking to Mountain Bike BC to make sure that they know that we're on the map to start promoting there. Fishing BC, Bird Trail BC, and Sled BC are all co-op opportunities where we can leverage additional funding through Destination BC with these cooperative marketing opportunities. And then our action item 4 is leveraging the Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Information Center to contract out a fee for service agreement. So this year it does pay 95, but we're going to do a $10,000 fee for service. To put forward the BIC artwork. So we're going to take some of the artwork panels in partnership with Shuswap Tourism. We'll get them to help us write a lot of the history and the local information, update that content for a visitor guide. We'll leverage their students for the geocache. It takes a lot of time to continue every week to go out to all of those geocaches and restock them and make sure they're full of all of the information about our town. Asset delivery, so delivering visitor guides as needed to all the businesses and hotels around. And then utilizing the young kids and their social media savviness to get them on the ground social media stories for our content or for our platforms. Priority 2, business retention and expansion. As I mentioned, we're going to follow up from the 2022 business survey with local businesses. We've already have Director Wagler and Director Dales, who's not here, that have taken our red flag priority businesses, and they're already reaching out to find out how we can, as a development corporation, support businesses that are looking to shut down or relocate in the next 12 months. And then they'll move on to the businesses looking to expand to see again how we can support them and find ways to allow them to grow. Action item 2, continue to engage with local businesses in that vulnerable startup phase. So again, this is an opportunity to work with the chamber to look at those startup business lists and make sure that they feel supported from the development corporation. Action item 3, continue to identify and provide free business training for business training and development programs for local businesses. So we got grant funding over the last 2 years to promote and support businesses through these free training. Digital online adoption, digital marketing, et cetera, were the most popular. So we're going to revisit looking at those and then continue to identify funding opportunities to assist and expand. So there's FCBC coming out with another grant coming up in April that we're going to go after to support our financial ask of the district of Sicamous. Land development and attraction. This is where we have invested in our community plan. Now we're going to invest in assets that will help us promote the community. So looking at looking at things like our investment ready booklet. We've got a couple one-pagers, but I'd like to see that go into an actual tangible document of the community profile, relocation package, investment attraction pieces, all of that combined into one nice document. And then we have our broadband and connectivity initiative, that Director Wagler is going to speak to. And then within the next 3 action items, it really does talk about the assets that we need to create to better promote and get ready for. We know that there are projects happening, there's housing, there's potential mixed use and commercial. So now we need to get these products, no longer waiting until these projects happen. We need to initiate this interest in the community and show the products that are sort of in the pipeline. This will also help us through one of my partnerships with SAVES. They're traveling overseas, and we will deliver this information about Sicamous to take to an international market to help attract more workers coming over through the Rural Northern Immigration Program and other opportunities. So they're investing a lot into going over for this trip and have allowed the entire shoe shop. So I'm going to digress for a second. There's 3 economic development organizations, 2 societies and a corporation within the shoe shop. And we all work closely together because we understand that all of this staffing and industry that we can bring into the area will eventually and, it will support all of us. So, we do have a lot of people, especially between Salmon and sick moves that commute. So Lana is going over to Amsterdam, I believe it is, and she's going to be taking all of our sick moves assets that we can give her to promote our community on behalf of us through our partnership. So. Meet regularly with the district planning department to discuss current and future land use matters, permitting processes and bylaws, and maintain an inventory of available investment opportunities, including vacant and leased spaces, to be prepared to respond with timely and accurate information. Identify experienced partners in the development industry and promote our revitalization tax exemption. As you can see, we've got a lot on our plate this year. Then our final one is housing, and to stimulate the development of residential lands by actively engaging with potential developers and builders, demonstrating market demand, market vacant residential and commercial lands to potential developers to increase affordable housing inventory and secondments, and continue to provide input into the various housing committee conversations with the DOS. Any questions on those action items?
On the housing one, I see a 222 Temple is for sale. Has the Dev Corp reached out and asked who's interested in that, and is there any way they could partner?
Through the chair, that's a good question.
It's zone residential, multi-residential. It's
We have Howard, that's Howard's property.
Oh.
The chunk.
sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, Howard's.
Sorry, I was in my brain. Through the chair, yeah, sorry. So we had Howard come and talk to us.
Oh, okay. Anything come out of that?
It made our board aware of the property and Howard's plans for it, or what his vision was for it. So it's equipped our board with the knowledge to go back to their developer friends. There was some conversations after Howard left the call about local developers that had been looking at projects 2 years ago through Dr. Halfrick, and then potentially reaching back out and providing this. So that's another project that we're looking at doing, is making sure that we can identify all of the vacant land or the for sale lands.
Yeah, just in closing on that one, he's open to offers from other developers. He just needs a partner. He would, basically, like most of a lot of land developers do, they'll just donate the land. The builder will build the project, and all he's asking for is to be paid out when it's as they go, or even take a unit, 1 or 2 units on trade. So
Right.
he's excited about that, but he thought he'd put it up for sale just to make everybody aware that it's for sale.
Yeah, I was just thinking it's a good opportunity for the district to partner with the Dev Corp, because in our strategic housing strategy, recommended to staff for incentives to partner with private development. So no one's approached us yet, but maybe we should be proactive in approaching them, saying, if you put in 4 units of affordable housing, we can waive your permitting fees or some of your DCC costs, that kind of thing.
Go ahead, Ian.
I just have a question about the community economic development plan. So you kind of pointed out that, we started this in 2018. We started right, Kelly? 2018, the
Incorporate.
So in the 4 years that we didn't have that plan, I guess, what is that plan going to do now that was different than the last 4 years? You kind of highlighted it as being this important key piece, I'm kind of gathering. And I'm just wondering what's different going forward with this. I read through it. It looks pretty common sense in many ways. I'm just wondering, why is that this linchpin now?
Sure, through the chair. So when I first started, what we were given was a list of strategic priorities that essentially were driven by the past or previous mayor and council. So that Kelly touched on those. So things like natural gas, biofuel, heat, the campground. So a lot of the initiatives had already been taken over or were worked on by mayor and council. So we didn't really have as much. We provided some input, but that was the direction that we started with. Through that process, we determined that we needed to find out what our community was saying they wanted to see through it from a development corporation. So we initiated a RFP to go out to see about, business engagement, community engagement, to find out what was actually happening with one staff and limited board availability. We couldn't actually go out and complete such a comprehensive plan or comprehensive engagement and invest in that research. So by engaging this company, they've actually given us all the data we need to drive that. So we're just going off of data and information that is going to drive our direction. So I guess in a roundabout way of saying it, this plan is actually something, these 4 pillars to focus on and figure out through there based on what the community says it needs. So we're less going on what our individual points of interest are or going off of what the council strategic priorities are and focusing on what the community has spoken, what the businesses have said that they would like to see us go, what direction they would like to see us going.
Maybe just a quick follow-up. So a lot of these areas that you got highlighted now, they weren't worked on in the past.
Through the chair, no, we were working on broadband was one of the ones we were working on, and we did look at a little bit of land development. Through tourism, obviously we had the MRDT fund and we were working through that. But in terms of like housing and actually having some really specific focuses and targets to achieve or to work towards achieving, we didn't have that sort of pinpoint focus.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Carly. Mayor Anderson.
Just to add to that, Ian, we're in our infancy and we didn't have the right people in the right place either. You know, we started off and we were kind of wondering, you know, what we should do and what our priorities should be and how the ECDEV Corp fit with the council. And we had, like Carly said, we had our priorities and we handed them ECDEV, but yet we held on to them because they were our portfolio. So it was really tough moving this forward. And then we didn't have the right people in the right place. And then we got some people in the right place, but not all people in the right place. Right now, I feel like we've finally got a plan and I'm super comfortable with this and the right people in the right place to start moving us forward. So it took a while. It took a lot of stumbling to get to this point, as it does with anything. Like you got to make mistakes and learn by them, right? So I think we're getting there. The other thing that I wanted to mention is there is no one addresses this, staff accommodations. We look at attainable housing and affordable housing and all of that stuff, but let's not forget that we're always going to have a need for staff housing. Because not all those people are going to come and live in Sycamus. They may come here from Whistler in the summer and work here and go back to Whistler for the winter. So there is that space, that landing space that I think that we should have a look at as well for those folks that are coming and going. So I just wanted to point that out. Maybe that could fit in here somewhere.
Great. Yeah, that's a great idea. We'll add it to our list.
Okay, thank you.
Well, maybe I'll just pause. Are we in discussion or we want to get through the presentation and then discuss?
Well, we can ask questions. It's just, it's not open discussion.
Maybe you just continue and then we can go on. Yeah.
Okay. And I just wanted to further to Ian's question. So this was the look of our previous kind of strategic priorities. It was a list that was inherited from council and then kind of transferred over to the development corporation. So that's just kind of where we were and then kind of where we are now.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Carly?
So that tells you our present. That is what we're working on right now. This is the action plan that we want to put forward, moving over the next 2 years with this new council. And then we look into the future. So we actually revisited what the original mandate was on top of that list of strategic priorities. And we thought, you know what, it's a lot of words, it's a lot of stuff that maybe doesn't apply to our new focus as we're working on these 4 pillars. So our new statement of purpose is the District of Sycamus Development Corporation is committed to the long-term economic prosperity of the District of Sycamus through a focus on 4 pillars of growth. Towards product development, business retention and expansion, land development and investment attraction, housing. The DOSD is committed to making the District of Sycamus a better place to live, work, and play. Very simple, very succinct, and very focused. And when we look at the future of economic development and recognizing sort of where we've come in the past 2 years as a board, we look at our tourism priorities. So for this, looking into the next year or two, right now we're executing priority number 1. And that is driven by Explore Sycamus and funded by MRDT revenue. So in an effort to combat capacity and know that we're at that cusp where we're making more money and we're ready to sort of explode past essentially laying the groundwork for the foundational pieces to get the tourism side going. We're now incorporating some contract services in 2023 out of MRDT funding. As I mentioned, a fee for the Chamber of Commerce for visitor center services valued at $10,000, and then Moxie Marketing, which is going to be managing and developing and growing our social media presence through online programming. And then we look at economic development. So the goal is to execute those 3 additional priorities. And to do that, we're going to incorporate contract services again through Trilogy, which is going to help with website management. And then our agency, which we're in the process of determining an agency to help with our Second Moose is Open, or our investment attraction marketing campaign for Second Moose. Future plans for 2024 and beyond. So again, as we grow, we'll continue to monitor the progress, achievements, and efficiencies within both Explore Second Moose tourism and economic development functions. Again, recognizing I have a board and a tourism advisory committee, I'm still one person. So I remember back in early 2021, Kelly and I set a goal for, in the next 2 to 3 years, it would be great to have, 1 or 2 extra staff, which shows that progression or that trajectory of growth that really sort of cements we are growing and we are going in the direction. So we're getting to that point, and I think as we see, 2024 is going to bring us that. So we'll explore options of a shared support position between the development and tourism, whether that's full-time, part-time, or seasonal, and then continue to leverage contract positions for specific projects not requiring the investment of a full-time or part-time staff. So when we look at social media management services, they're experts in it, more value by just paying someone else that's a professional to do it than trying to muddy the waters and doing it ourselves. So we'll be exploring all of those opportunities. Sure.
Ernie, just question on social media and marketing and that. You have 2 different companies. Is there a reason for that, or I was just curious?
Of course, through the chair. So the Moxie Marketing is actually a social media management organization. They're Second Moose based. So they're taking over the production and growth of content. The agency for marketing they're going to actually build out the economic development, investment attraction, community profile. I did put it out to Moxie as well, and they don't feel that they're equipped in the economic development space to produce a product that we're looking for. So I actually went with RFPs to a Fernie organization, a Cranbrook organization, and an organization actually out of Hamilton, after I reviewed some economic development programming through Shoes Cranbrook, which has been very widely advertised as an excellent traction campaign that they've created. So I've been working with Cranbrook to determine, the pieces that I would like to get, and they've sent me some places to RFP for that.
Oh, okay, so that's the Trilogy one.
No, sorry, Trilogy is website management.
Okay,
So
totally website management.
just website, you bet, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, Bob, sorry.
Thank you, through the chair. I just looked up Moxie Marketing. So they're the ones that made our really good looking guide last year. It's on the website,
Yes.
that magazine. So they made our magazine. That was a good looking document. Okay.
Yeah.
And the website was Moxie as well, or was that Trilogy?
So the Explore Second Moose website was Box Clever out of Edmonton. The Development Corporation website is Trilogy. Yes.
Just to add, I think that you're thinking of Moxie also did the Chamber of Commerce, I think, website.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So then
Ready? Ian?
what's the $40,000 for?
Through the chair, so $40,000 is the budget that we've tagged to create an investment attraction strategy. So again, community profile, relocation package, investment attraction piece. So actually get that all developed and put into a nice, concise package so that when it will be both print and digital for us when we go to trade shows or go, providing someone like Lana the opportunity to take our information, but also a digital asset that when we do have potential investors, it gives everything that you would see when you're thinking about going to invest in a town. You would have all of that information, because right now we have it sort of all over the place between 3 organizations. And the goal would be to bring that all in and share that as a shared resource between Chamber, District, and Denver.
Yeah, that seems like sorry to the chair, that seems like an awfully big price for out of the budget. So what would that give you going forward that you don't have now? I think you just mentioned that. So that's for ECDEP.
Apologies, that also includes video content. So when we're looking at developing content for our website, doing, not sure if you've seen from Sam and Arm, how they've gone in and had interview pieces with local businesses, so telling the story of Sick Moose, that's also layered into that 40,000
Okay, so
video development.
just so I'm clear, it's for, this is primarily for ECDEV though.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Ian. Bob, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks to the chair. Just a comment. That's actually a really good deal. Because you look at the stuff that they're creating for us and that these days, that's pretty standard price. Especially when you look at it, it's like 5,000 for wedding pictures.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Carly, one other, TBA agency or TBC, where are they out of?
To be confirmed.
To be confirmed, okay.
Yes, we didn't get we had the RFP, we haven't had a chance to sit as a board and go through it. As a side note, which I didn't want to kind of muddy the slide up, but at CBC, the grant that I was able to get to do the community economic development plan, they're releasing a building economic capacity grant on April 1st, and I pre-qualified that this project will fall under that, so we can go after the 15,000 full 100% grant to put towards this project, or we can go after the 60% covered grant. So we're looking at this project as a scalable opportunity. It doesn't have to be all done in year one. I've got a plan, a layered plan, and I've been working with the agents to figure out what that looks like if we don't get the financial ask, if it's out of our reach in terms of the priority of projects we want to do, or we aren't able to secure the grant funding. So this is our sort of dream project, and then we'll scale it down based on the funding that we do have.
Great.
Because I have a hard time finding them on the internet.
Fair enough.
Here's a pretty one today.
I'm looking at the trajectory of growth and making sure that we're on the right path. I wanted to take a look at what other MRDT collection communities were doing. And as you can see, I've put them down in order when they started. So the newest collector, I was talking with Oliver and looking to see how, as the, and right down, sorry, to Golden, to see how as their MRDT grew, how did they manage capacity? What did they do? And I just outlined in terms of where economic development services sit, where tourism and MRD sit, and where visitor information services sat, going after what we're doing here, and to see the comparisons and how that works. And I would, if anybody has any questions, Kelly, I don't know if you have any information you want to relay, but it's, as I mentioned, it's interesting that Shuswap has the 3 economic development organizations, and Shuswap Economic Development Society is currently going after MRDT. They're doing an application and all of the work for that. So then they'll be managing MRDT for South Shuswap, North Shuswap, and the areas over where their economic development service area is. So. And then our budget. So as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, that is our tourism budget. That budget was submitted based on a strategic planning session that we had in September of 2022 with the previous Tourism Advisory Committee. That aligned with the plan that was submitted November 30th. And that is where our funding sits. The beauty of being a Destination BC and our funding is they're always 3 months behind. So when we pitch the plan, we're projecting funding. So a lot of our projects, Destination BC understands, are fluid in terms of the spending, and things change so quickly based on, undetermined events or activities that happen in a year. So we have some blanket numbers that we've gone traditionally year over year where our expense lines have been, but we do have the opportunity to flex or move as project priority increases or decreases. And then when we look at our economic development side, a lot of the fixed costs are laid there, and then we have what's called other projects. And other projects is where we derive the funding to do any of our marketing campaigns or broadband projects. So why we're here today, what we're looking for is the additional ask of 42,000, and I would like to invite Director just to come up and talk to you about the main part of our ask, which is a project that the district had asked us to explore when we first started in 2020, and that's the broadband initiative. And the work that Director Fair has been doing for the past 2 years has got us to a point where now we feel we have a product that we can present to council to a degree and showcase the importance of that initiative to the district. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Basically, as a new member to this board, I'm getting brought up to speed on a lot of these things as well. But this broadband initiative is obviously a very important thing. It's been discussed for quite some time. It's been the focus of a lot of work of the previous Economic Development Board. When we got kicked off this year, we had some discussions about it. There was a presentation made to the new members of the board. And the new members of the board support this as well going forward this year. Really, when you look at broadband internet, you just have to understand that internet is not like a do you have it, do you not have it. There's varying degrees of internet. And internet is no longer like a luxury item. It's becoming a utility. So it's really as important as power and water and communication, through like phone. So internet is a key kind of competitiveness marker that people will judge your community by when they think about living, working, playing in that area. So to that end, this is if we don't move on this and we don't find a way to address this, it will at some point become a very significant barrier to people living in different areas of the region. Now there's lots of people that provide internet, lots of commercial, lots of different scenarios, and there's lots of technology being developed, and things will naturally change in the future. But I think what we need to understand is that waiting for it to happen has a cost. So we need to address this and get the best service available to this community as fast as we can in order to be competitive and in order to attract investment. So to that end, what we would like to do is make an ask to basically what our short fee for scenario in which we can bring forth a solution to get going on that right away. We don't have a very specific budget or a very specific ask at this time, but what we do have is a time-sensitive opportunity that has been worked for by the previous board, in which the stars could align for a project to be able to come forth by about March 31st of this year. So we will be coming to council with a specific proposal and a specific ask in the next few weeks. And we just didn't want to miss the opportunity here today to give you a heads up and ask that you set aside some budget in your deliberations so that when that opportunity comes, we're able to react to it and commit funds at that time. So I didn't understand, I'm not giving you a lot of detail to work with here today, but the ask isn't that you commit the funding today. The ask is that you just embrace the idea of the opportunity and be ready with funds available should you enjoy the presentation that's forthcoming.
Thank you, Alan. Bob?
Thank you, through the chair. I just want to clarify then for myself. So are we talking, like I know a guy named Adam, he came here to work for Shopify, moved here. Internet was too unreliable, moved to Salmon Arm. Is that because we don't have fiber optic internet? Is that what we're talking about? Something that's much faster than what we're having now, like everybody streams Netflix and stuff, but all right, is that what we're talking about? Something that's
bandwidth and reliability.
Okay.
So and that comes down, for everything from in the summer high season, not being able to process payments effectively in businesses, and then it goes all the way into the spectrum with like you say, significant employment opportunities with people, moving tech intensive businesses here that simply can't be supported with the existing infrastructure.
So one more comment, please. So a friend of mine says he's got gig internet, and that means millibytes per second, I think, or something like that, whereas we might have 25 here.
Yeah, it's all references to the side of the pipe.
Okay.
But basically, You'll see that, you know, I mean, obviously Sycamoose is a lifestyle opportunity that a lot of people are willing to sacrifice a lot to be here. So there's, you know, varying degrees of just making do, or people that go to extreme measures to solve the problem for themselves individually. But what we're talking about is an opportunity that would solve it for.
Copy that. Thank you.
Malcolm?
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm not an IT guy at all, so I don't know the difference between fiber optics or broadband, or if they're the same, I'm not sure. But I do know we have fiber optics running down to Trans-Canada, and we have fiber optics at our building that the community owns on Pendleton, our community health center there. And I believe we have fiber optics on Main Street here to a certain degree. So how hard would it be to just expand that?
So that falls under, I guess, the general term for that is last mile. And so that's actually one of the larger problems in internet access is that quite often you've got a beautiful pipeline going right by you, but you're not connected into it in such a way that you can make use of it. And under this proposal that we'll be bringing forth, it basically builds out a framework on how we can leverage all of this infrastructure that's all around us that we're not actually properly connected into in a way that business and consumer can use it in a meaningful way.
So just as a quick follow-up, so I guess that's a mortar fix because it's a part of cable in the ground, fiber optics. So are you looking at that or something that's sort of like a Starlink kind of thing? Like, so are you looking at a satellite that can cover the town for Starlink, or are you looking for digging up the town and wiring fiber optics everyone?
Well, I think at this point, what we're looking at is getting onto that fiber backbone. But in order to do so, there is a startup cost of getting some reserved space in that pipe, and then some equipment that will allow you to access and manage that. So it's kind of a heavy hit to get it initially up and running. But you know, the good news is that there is actually a revenue picture on the other side of that. So in the proposal, how that kind of balances out and what the anticipated upfront cost and then payback would be.
Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm. Anybody else have any questions? Good, Alan. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We will consider.
Thanks for all your work.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to the very long presentation that we had. Did anybody have any questions?
Cardi, I was just gonna ask, you have on the projects, the broadband initiative and invest in Sycamoose campaign, 25,000. You have what's that rate? You have a breakout of that or?
So through the chair, apologies. The 25 is where the board was comfortable investing based on our existing funding. The 40 that the total plan would be if, as I mentioned, I could scale it up by getting grant funding to support that. So the 75 will be the amount that the board will come and present to you guys based on the specifics of the broadband initiative. And then I'll be able to better, once we pick a provider for the campaign, I'll be able to outline all the specific steps that will either cost us $25,000 or if I can get the grant. They basically given me an a la carte option and said, hey, if you only have this budget, you can, this is what we can produce. If you have this budget, this is where we can level up your campaign. And then we had carryover. We had, where did we have that?
Right there.
33,000 from unused project budget from 2022. So we added that into our $25,000 that we allocate for special projects for 2023, giving us that carryover. And then once you subtract the 75 and the 25, that would be what our ask is. So we're basically just focusing on those two big projects as part of our big ask.
Yeah, and so for clarity, instead of 100, you're asking for 140.
Yes.
Yeah. For ECDF services.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Gary. Malcolm, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. So on your 4 pillars, one pillar is housing. So myself and Siobhan are in the district of Sycamoose Housing Committee, which is composed of two counselors, two staff members, and two members of the public. Because it's one of your four pillars, I thought maybe it might be advantageous to add one more person on the district housing committee as a representative from the Dev Corp. Because then it should tie everything in and keep some continuity there, maybe. I'm just suggesting to council that maybe we might expand the district decisions housing committee to include one member from the Dev Corp.
Any comment on that one?
Sorry, I was.
She was helping me with
I was
something for
helping
you.
Bob with something. I wasn't fully listening. I'm really sorry. That's.
My bad.
Conversation out of this room and
Okay,
move it to
Sure.
another meeting.
okay, we'll do that.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry too. That's it.
Yeah, Colleen?
Alan, can I just ask you a question? You were going out to see some business owners about, sorry, your portfolio was, they're fit in town.
Yeah, business.
Correct. And you've already seen some?
We've had a couple of full conversations, but actually Colleen and I, I decided that it would be better to do it a little more formally and in Paris to go into the zone. So we've got our list together and we just haven't really need to start that.
Okay, well, that's good. Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Great, thanks, Carly. Appreciate your presentation and.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dave and Alan, for coming. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Okay, I guess moving right along. Moving into camera.
Thank you.
Bye, thanks.
Thank you. Good job.
Recommend that pursuant to section 91C and 91CE of the community charter, the select finance committee move in camera. Can I have a motion? Bob, seconder,